We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And in the aftermath of the Cowboys' 22-19 win, last-second win over the Atlanta Falcons, the Cowboys now sitting at 5-5. It is the Doomsday Podcast alongside Ed Werder, coming from our Frito Nation production studios in Allen. And Ed, just like we thought when they were 3-5, they were going to win these two road games back-to-back, find a way to get it done, and then get back, as some people have put it, they're now in control of the NFC East. Did you ever see anything like this coming, and how shocked are you that we remember that I said Jason Garrett, in my involved sort of mathematical formula, had an 85% chance of being fired? I did want to start off by saying...
You're going to amend that now?
Yeah, I've got it at 50-50. I think he is at 5-5. He is now 50-50.
Well, that's perfect for Jason Garrett.
Yeah, that's exactly
because what I'm going to say is that there's nobody in the NFL who can coach a team to 500 like Jason Garrett. Since becoming the Cowboys head coach, his teams have now played 15 games when they're within one game of 500. And in those 15 games where they're one game below 500, the Cowboys are now 13-2. And 4 of those victories have come this season against the Giants, Lions, and Jaguars at home, and now the Falcons on the road. The Cowboys are not only 500. They're not only a game behind the Redskins in the NFC East, but they should, at the end of Thursday, be in first place in the NFC East. I mean, Washington has a short week to get physically prepared, to get emotionally prepared for Colt McCoy being the quarterback after, losing their starting quarterback Alex Smith to this gruesome leg injury on the 33rd anniversary of Joe Theismann's broken leg. So the Cowboys should have every reason and every expectation should be that the Cowboys will avenge their loss at Washington, win the game on Thursday, and be in first place.
It is one of the great, a lot of people over the years have said it's one of the great home field advantages, getting to play Thanksgiving every single year at their home stadium. The league has tried to kind of even the playing field by making them turn around and play a little faster than back in the day so they don't get the extended sort of the fake bye. What's happening?
I was just going to say, I was just trying to get your attention for when you wrap this up, as I know you're about to do, this never-ending thought of yours. I was just...
I had not spoken for...
Well, you overreacted to me tapping you on the shoulder. Oh, I think from now on I should just call in.
You kind of scared me.
You're just not... Yeah, I think you're going to probably claim that I physically assaulted you or something like that. Anyway, what I was going to say is this was the Cowboys' first... back-to-back wins on the road in 11 months. Is it noteworthy to point out that it's not only that, but it was against the last 2 NFC Super Bowl representatives? I'm not by any means forecasting the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl and beating out teams like the Saints and the Rams, who are clearly much better.
That's good stuff.
Or even the Vikings, who are obviously much better. But I just want to point that out as a statement of fact.
I mean, I'm glad you interrupted. I was really on a roll there. I really am glad you came in with that. I would say this. Speaking of getting over and dealing with emotional stuff, Ed Werder was supposed to be in Mexico City today, had his travel arrangements changed on the fly, and then he chose to fly to L.A. late on Sunday night just so he could do the Doomsday Podcast live and in studio. Frito, we got a lot to get to. We got to get this man on a plane as he goes to really cover some real teams.
2 real teams.
That's right.
2 9-1 teams.
Frito, please play the music. And it is that Doomsday Podcast and the excitement. And I have to say that, Ed, our numbers have been extremely strong lately. I was a little worried because the numbers had been higher after these losses. And I have to say, now last week was good because the Cowboys got that win over the Eagles. We did great numbers, and I can't imagine what this one is going to do for us. I want to start by saying this. I think this is a little bittersweet. I'm seeing this some on Cowboys Twitter, which I want to appoint myself sort of the leader of Cowboys Twitter out there. I think there's some bittersweetness. I think for the most part,
the people who want to fire.
Yeah. I think the fact that the Cowboys have pulled back into this 5-5 and now have a chance to beat the Redskins and jump back in here and really be in control of their destiny and get in first place in the NFC East. I think there's a few fans that are kind of bummed a little bit, although they don't want to root against the Cowboys per se.
But they think they're better off in the long run.
Yes.
If Jason Garrett fails this season and forces Jerry Jones to make the decision he doesn't want to make and fire Garrett, bring in another coach so that the Cowboys are not back in this very same situation a year from now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're feeling. It sounds like you've put some thought into this too.
I just think that if there's any plausible way Jerry Jones can justify bringing Jason Garrett back, he's going to. And that's why I think the people you're referencing here would find this to be a troubling victory.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. One of the things I think the reason folks listen to Doomsday, not to toot our own horn too much right off the top of the show, but I'll say, Ed, even since we just started the show and recording this show about an hour after the Cowboys win this thing 22-19 and Brett Maher, God, I've just struggled with him all year.
Until he has a clean game, you don't have to pronounce his name correctly.
I really can't. I think they still need to bring in some kickers this week, despite him having the game-winning field goal. I know. I'd say tomorrow or Tuesday you could have some kickers in here.
Hey.
But one of the reasons, Ed, let me toot our horn a little bit, that you come to us at Doomsday just in the past 30 seconds. I've heard from a member of the Cowboys coaching staff. Ed, you've had things coming in from the coaching staff, and so we'll pull back the curtain for you and let you know what things are happening. You know what, Ed? The Cowboys coaches, for the most part, don't talk after the games other than Jason Garrett. And he
doesn't talk either. He says things, but they are meaningless.
He barely talks. Jerry, of course, is talking. Ed, the atmosphere after the game, I'm told there's a report that somebody tragically died connected to the Cowboys, one of the players, and so it was somber.
Connected to one of the players, not
correct.
One of the players.
Not
okay,
one of the players,
clarify.
yeah. Well, I thought I clarified it fine, but thank you.
Sounded like people might have misunderstood what you were saying.
I also believe that, Ed,
the
players were, I'm very, very sensitive man, the players were gathered around the TVs watching the end of the Redskins game. They want to know what's going to be on the line when they face these Redskins, and now, Ed, did
they get their beer goggles out then when the Redskins lost and start spraying champagne, like they do in baseball at the end of the year?
They weren't at a bar.
They aren't in a bar in baseball either. They're in the clubhouse.
I was making a beer
and they're
goggle.
wearing these ski goggles. Yeah, I know what you're saying. They're wearing these ski. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's so much nice clothing wasted on the reporters.
I know. No, there was. They wanted to be excited, but I think they were subdued for other reasons. But an unbelievable outcome to this game. And Ed, let's start. There's a lot of different ways we could go with this. I thought the quarterback, and I'm anxious to hear from you. I'm sensing that you're not. I certainly don't get giddy over Cowboys victories. I root for this podcast. And when there's excitement around the Cowboys, that's good for this podcast. And so I will say, now, we'll get to Zeke. Zeke was remarkable. But this quarterback, I like what I'm seeing from Dak in the sense that he, late in the game, there's about 2 minutes left, and a little over, about 1:40 left. And what's he doing? He's clapping his hands over here. Let's go get this win, guys. They just forfeited a 10-point.
He got that from Garrett.
Yeah. It's 19-9. We thought they were in control of this thing. They've lost it. It's tied now. We're thinking we might go into overtime. Frito is cracking Jason Garrett overtime punting jokes, which I enjoyed, and yet they got the thing done.
By the narrowest of margins.
I know.
Maher's kick was made by a fraction of an inch.
I know. That's what I said. I'll give Jason this credit. Instead of just sort of dumping on himself down there and just kind of falling down so they could take a 48-yard field goal, at least they ran it a little bit to get 6 more yards.
He did that against Washington, too, but then they got the penalty. But
yeah,
in this case, he was obviously playing to win, kick a winning field goal, not a tying field goal like he failed to do in Washington. As for Dak, was his 12th game-winning drive in the fourth quarter or overtime. He conducted it remarkably well.
Let me just say this. They have a new captain come back.
After Roger Staubach received that medal from Donald Trump.
Move over, Roger.
You're ruining Roger's week. But no, I mean, I think, the thing about Dak is that he has the mental toughness to be a Cowboys quarterback. I mean, for all of his, whatever his other failures or flaws might be, he's a really unflappable guy. He has charisma that causes the players to gravitate toward him. That's how he won this job from Tony Romo, a 10-year veteran. I mean, that really says everything about the personality that Dak is in the locker room around these players, that they chose him as a rookie over a 10-year veteran quarterback that they'd played for. And he didn't have a 300-yard game again. He and Russell Wilson are the only long-term starting quarterbacks in the NFL without a 300-yard game. And I guess you could be a little troubled by the offensive performance from especially Prescott and his receivers from the standpoint of the Falcons are just horrendous on defense with all the injuries that they've had. And, since Nick Foles in week 1, they'd given up either a 300-yard passing game or 3 touchdown passes to every single opposing quarterback that they played, except for Dak, who didn't get either one of those things and doesn't have a game this year where he has either one of those things. So, but winning is what's important, and the Cowboys, I think, played the game on offense the way they had to play it if they were going to beat the Falcons. There's no way in my mind they could get into a scoring contest with the Falcons and win the game. So I think offensively they structured it the right way to control the score, have a little advantage time of possession, and make Ezekiel Elliott the featured player in the offense. That's when they win. And he went over 200 yards for the 4th time in his career, which ties the Cowboys' franchise record, career record. He's already had as many 200-yard scrimmage games as any player in Cowboys history. And it's the 2nd time he's done it this year. So that's when they're at their best. They clearly are using him more as a receiver now. And it's funny, you mentioned, the texts we get and the calls we get from people with the team. Well, one of the ones I got, the first player they mentioned was Amari Cooper, and how Amari's changing the equation and creating some of these opportunities for Ezekiel Elliott and other players, but primarily him.
Well, in one of those things that you were talking about, Ed, there were several players who had a chance for redemption. I sometimes go back and circle my old radio mentor, Norm Hitzkus. Frito was connected to him. He had the 5 plays, which, what was the thing called, Frito? 5 plays that you might not remember or something?
I called it 5 plays that you're too stupid to realize were big plays.
That's not what it was.
Sounds
but anyway,
like it's a segment you can't remember.
So I threw out games, and by the way, we'll have Glenn Stretch Smith giving out his grades. A lot of people look forward to that. We do too, and that'll come up in a little bit. But how huge of a play in this game, as we're going to stay on offense for a little bit here, and I want to get to Beasley on something because one of the coaches weighed in on Beasley. But how big a play was Lyle Collins falling on that fumble by Zeke? Zeke had a huge game, but he had the ball poked away by former Cowboy Jack Crawford, the kid from London or England or something. I think he's from the UK. And he jumped in there. He knocked the ball away.
And he got the first down.
And that ball got kicked. And, Collins kind of picked it up and in one fell swoop, fell forward.
I think they should give Collins the ball more.
Okay, you got to get Collins more touches. I think if Collins has more touches, his team's in trouble.
That's what Darryl Johnston used to say, right? As Emmett's fullback, he said they only let me touch the ball on fumble recoveries, and that's kind of Lyle Collins as well.
That's about right. That was a big play by him to keep possession at that point. I mean, they would have had the ball right around midfield. The Falcons would have. That would have been a very tough spot for the Cowboys. So we'll circle that. Another big play, Ed, in this game. Cowboys moving the ball in good shape, get down there on first down. A lot of times we get on to Linehan. Zeke's doing his thing. Run the ball with Zeke. Well, listen, you can't always run the ball on first down. Sometimes you got to, on first down and goal, nice little play to Cole Beasley, and he's really good at that, where he kind of fakes like he's coming up inside. And actually on that one, he just kind of didn't do anything. He kind of possumed him open. You know what I mean? He kind of played possum, and he jetted out to the right, wide open, drops the touchdown. Did you think at that point, Ed, oh, this is a harbinger of bad things when you saw that drop?
Well, the whole first half for the Cowboys was defined by drop passes, right? Malik Collins dropped a potential interception on the first play of the game. Then Cole Beasley dropped
leave him alone. He's not really supposed to catch passes. Well, Cole is.
Lyle Collins isn't supposed to get first downs either, but he did.
It's true.
And then you had the Beasley drop for a touchdown that wound up costing him, 4 points in a game. And then Jeff Heath dropped an interception when he was playing center field and got tackled harshly by Julio Jones. But I thought the first half was going to be defined and maybe the outcome of the game would be decided by Cowboys dropping 3 balls that made a huge difference in the game. But ultimately they were able to overcome it. I'll just say that Cole Beasley catches the ball 77% of the time it's been thrown to him this season, a very high percentage, one of the top 10 in the NFL. So it's very unusual for him to have a drop of that magnitude on such an easy play. And he did redeem himself later in the game on the game-winning drive in the final 2 minutes. But, Cole Beasley's this will not be the last time that failed catch is discussed, because he's obviously trying to negotiate a new contract with the Cowboys, and he's trying to convince them he's not a $6 million receiver like they think he is, but he's like an $8 or a $10 million receiver. Well, if I'm Stephen Jones, I'm going to say an $8 or a $10 million receiver. That's Julio Jones. Look at the catch he made for a touchdown, and look at the one you dropped that could have been a touchdown.
Julio Jones, who had a player, Awuzie, with his arm inside as he's trying to make the catch,
with
moving the ball
sideline
around, and Julio Jones secures that catch. That is one unbelievable wide receiver. Had 3 former Alabama greats on the field today. Julio's still the best by far, I think. I'd put Cooper second, and then, of course, the young Ridley third, and Ridley had a big drop that led to a Van Der Esch interception. That was kind of fun to see because of what happened in the draft. And obviously the Cowboys choosing not to take Ridley. They took Van Der Esch. I've been pretty critical of that one, especially when Ridley started scoring a bunch of touchdowns earlier this season. Now I need to eat a little crow because Van Der Esch is looking great.
Well, salvation for you in that argument is that, they did have to still go get a receiver, and they had to use another first-round pick to get that receiver.
True.
And it's Cooper at 24 versus the Falcons' Ridley at 24.
Yeah.
Ridley's got 7 touchdown catches already. But
so I did make a great point when you really go back to it. Yeah, some
I know
grace.
You're, going back to your law school days, you like to have a way to defend your position, even though it's a losing proposition. Mm-hmm. This is a way for you to at least drag it out for a while.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that you're giving me that. You would have made a good lawyer.
My wife says
although
that
you would have never. You would have never conceded. That is one thing I can concede occasionally. Like I would be pretty good at being a what do you call it when you go have the session?
You would plea bargain everything.
No, I mean I like trial. I like battling, but I mean I could go to I could be a good mediator. I think I could. Yeah. Go ahead.
I argue well. I do it often. I'm well practiced.
Okay. Why don't we just pat ourselves on the back a little bit?
I assure you that I will be willing to admit I'm wrong as soon as I am.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I did want to say this, Ed. I'm not trying to match you. Your sources and just your ability to break news. We're so proud of you. But I did hear from a member of the Cowboys organization, fairly high in organization, I might add, saying, I just kind of asked, hey, what did it mean that to you guys that Beasley was able to atone for that earlier, like we were just talking about?
Right.
And to which he replied, Beasley plays the right way. Each play is its own entity. We preach all the time in our room that the great players in this league, just sort of gave it up there, move on to the next play successfully or not. It doesn't matter. That's okay. I'm not going to.
You're right. I'm going to stop texting you now.
That's right. Boy, I really know how to protect these guys. I think he'd be fine with me putting out there.
Let's hope so.
Let people
maybe
connect the dots.
You're underestimating the deductive powers of our audience.
We've got smart folks out there. I think that can.
Well,
put
you know what?
together.
And speaking of that, after Beasley dropped the ball, of course, a lot of people started complaining, at least on social media, immediately that the Cowboys didn't give Elliott another touchdown there. What a bunch of idiots these coaches are. And hey, blame the guy who dropped the pass, not the guy who called the next 2 plays. It should have been completely unnecessary.
That's right. I think you're right to make that point. Now, Ed, Any other points we want to make on offense before we jump over to some of these defensive? You have a lot of notes in front of you over there. Is there anything else you want to say? I thought Cooper, they only had 2 targets, no catches in the first half. I thought getting him involved early in the second half, especially where Dak threw that ball up and put it up where really Cooper was about the only one who would have a chance to make a play on the ball, and he did on the sideline. That's a catch we haven't seen really any other Cowboys receiver make. It's not like Cooper had a great day. He had 3 catches, 36 yards, but I thought that was a big play to extend a drive.
Yeah, well, and just it's anecdotal in terms of it represents the new confidence that Dak has throwing the football, and that there's justification for it. That he can trust Cooper even when he's covered to make a play for him. All the great quarterbacks in history of the NFL have somebody that they can trust to do that for them. And I think Dak started this season and played the first half of it without anybody that he could trust, much less on a ball like that. So I think that portends well going forward.
The Cowboys turned around some videos after this game, and it was pretty good. It was like the celebration, and they had Zeke saying some stuff. It was a well done, like they turned it around quickly, and it was one of those inside baseball kind of, right there at the scene after the game. And you know who was featured in a big way in this little, minute video? Rico Gathers.
Of course he was. Were you the producer?
Gathers was right. I feel like he and Martellus Bennett are like the same person, except for Marty B went on to be, pretty prolific. He actually had a nice career, and I like Gathers, but I don't think he's going to go into that. And let's jump over to the other side of the ball. Glenn Stretch Smith coming up with his grades, but I think we'd have to start on defense with a guy who has becoming one of the great linebackers in this league, and on pace to perhaps be the defensive rookie of the year. Leighton Vander Esch, the wolf killer himself.
Hunter, the wolf hunter.
I call him the killer.
I did see pictures where he did kill the wolves.
Yeah.
It was a little disturbing.
Yeah.
He lost a little support from me on that, I got to tell you.
Timberwolves that he was just holding up, killed 2 of them. Now, according to him, that was legal where he was, but still, it's a little sad to see. But the wolf hunter making some plays in the open field. Ed, it's now getting to where once a week he makes one of those insane plays where he fights off at least one blocker.
He's on the ground.
2. Yeah, and he comes up and he makes a play. He had one play today where he kind of waited and came on a delayed. It wasn't really a blitz. I think what he did is he was kind of out there in a zone.
Fake forward.
And then he decided, let's go ahead and
he took the fake.
Go racing after the quarterback. Yeah. And he effected a throw there by Matt Ryan. It's getting to the point, and I don't think Sean Lee's going to let this get awkward when he comes back, because I think Sean Lee, much like Tony Romo knew, he has seen a young player grow before our very eyes, and now it used to be the Cowboys couldn't win without Sean Lee, and now it looks like they're going to kind of have to almost force some scenario where they get him involved. He'll still be involved when he comes back, but it won't be like, hey, let's have Sean Lee out there for every play.
Well, first of all, Sean Lee is a very unusual player if you talk to the coaches from the standpoint of his intellect for football, his commitment to preparation, and, they consider him to be like a savant. And I remember the thing that first struck me about him a few years ago when he's missing the entire season, and yet he was still going to meetings before and after practices as if he were playing in the game. He loves football and cares about it, preparation that much. So he could impart that, knowledge on his teammates, which he's played no small role in what Van Der Esch is doing now. And he played no small role in the advances that Jalen Smith has performed this year. But listen to this. I think this is remarkable. In 5 NFL starts, 5, Leighton Vander Esch leads the Cowboys in tackles and interceptions, and has allowed them to have a 4-1 record in games that Sean Lee has missed this season with injuries. So Lee was once the most indispensable player, arguably on the entire team, certainly on the defensive side of the ball, because they were like 1-8 at one point without him. And now, like you're suggesting, when Lee's healthy, he's going to get a little more time to get healthy. He's going to be healthier when he finally comes back. They don't have to rush him back anymore, and they're going to have to figure out a situation where 3 excellent players, play 2 spots.
I think they'll give him until 2019.
Well, he's got $11 million salary next year. That's going to be the interesting decision at the end of this year. They invested, obviously, a first-round pick in Van Der Esch. If he continues to play like this, it's going to be hard to justify having Sean Lee and his $11 million on the payroll, just like it was ultimately to justify, Des Bryant's salary or Jason Witten's, even though they kind of wanted Witten back. But I don't think you could
always do the will the player renegotiate and take a little pay cut. And I sense that Sean Lee, based on what we know about him and everything, might show a little more willingness than Dez did in that situation.
And he's a guy who loves football so much, and he hasn't made, zillions of dollars like Tony Romo did, and he's not going to get a chance to go be, a number one network football analyst. So he could wind up.
Don't rule it out. They hand him out like candy these days to Cowboys.
He could wind up being a coach of some sort at when his playing career's over. But
I would make him a player coach. I would literally.
Well, he already is that. Just
kind
it's
of,
unofficial.
yeah.
But I really don't think we can say enough about what the defense accomplished in this game. And I'll admit that I was one of the people who was out there like, hey, yeah, you're third in the NFL in scoring defense, but, you play in the NFC East, nobody scores in this division, so you haven't really played anybody. Well, now they have. They played a team that was, third or fourth in the NFL in points scored at home, a great quarterback, a great group of receivers, a really good running back, and they averaged 32 points a game at home. They scored one touchdown. They were held without a touchdown for 58 minutes, and they scored a total of 19 points in the game. So Matt Ryan, listen to this stat. He's now 1-12 since 2011 when facing a scoring defense that ranks in the top 3, which the Cowboys do at third. So while he's the best quarterback since 2016 in the month of November, better than Tom Brady, better than Ben Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers, the Cowboys, that's the magnitude of this defensive victory for the Cowboys, that they were able to beat a guy who's really been playing some of the best football of his career in his own building in a game that was every bit as important to them as it was to the Cowboys.
Where do you find all these stats? Could you give me the password to where you come up with all this stuff?
Well, some of them I come up with myself, and some of them I just find in other places and bring them and have them available if they're relevant. I try to.
If they're really good, you might attribute to where you found it.
No, if they're not that good, I'll attribute them. If they're outstanding, I'm going to say I kind of figured them out myself.
That's right. Oh, it is Ed Werder. It is the Doomsday Podcast. And, Ed, I will say about this defense, before we get to the grades from Glenn Stretchsmith and get you off on your flight, as Ed's going to go cover one of the great regular season games, the Rams versus the Chiefs. They've moved it from Mexico City because of field conditions there. Nice job, NFL. Nice job not even being able to manage a field and get this game played. But, Ed, the defense, some other players, Jalen Smith continues to play extremely well. I thought Malik Collins, he had one of those plays today where he just blew up a running back and an offensive lineman, just carried him right back into the backfield. He's doing some nice things. I mean, think about this. We talk about how players, are indispensable. You were just talking about Sean Lee. You go without 4 of your linemen are not active today, not able to go. And you go out there and they do fine. And they hang in there.
And they played really well in the first half. And I think that was important to make Matt Ryan uncomfortable early in the game and let him know he was going to be pressured. He was going to get hit, and he wasn't able to hold it all day long. He's going to have to throw it quickly. And I wondered whether they'd be able to maintain that pace and that intensity in the second half if they had to play a lot of plays. But they really were up to it. And nobody does that better than DeMarcus Lawrence. I don't know of a superstar level player, and I think he's that now. And we weren't always sure. There's no question Jerry Jones is going to have to pay this guy
the man
huge money after this season.
Or if you tag him again, that'll be a huge amount.
But he deserves whatever he's going to make because he is as relentless as it gets. In fact, one of the texts I got from somebody with the Cowboys right after the game was, DeMarcus Lawrence is the anti-Le'Veon Bell. He plays hard all the time, no matter his contract status. The anti-Le'Veon Bell.
Whoa.
And I think another guy who
what room was that coach in that texted you that?
Let me think about it and tell you later. The other thing, the other guy I thought who played exceptionally well was Chido Awuzie. He was second round pick. His Colorado
Cheeto
coach
was
just
second,
fired,
and Jordan Lewis was third.
And he had another nice end around. That's all he does now.
He's the jet sweep specialist.
But Awuzie, I thought he was on. He got thrown out a lot when they put Julio on him, and he did give up the touchdown, but it was a tough catch and a great throw, and he was right there. But
pretty decent coverage.
I thought Awuzie, even though Julio had 118 yards, he
was competitive.
I thought he played really well for the situation he was put in. I mean, Julio Jones is going to be a top 10 receiver in NFL history when it's all said and done, and I thought Cheeto held up very well.
I thought. By the way, Jeff Heath got a little bit what he deserved today. A guy who's has ended one man's career. A guy barely was able to walk after that thing.
In Seattle.
Yeah, Ricardo Lockett, I think it was. And but he tries to just blow up people all the time, and he's got just an easy interception. And Julio Jones changes into a defender and just crushes him.
And it was such a great defensive play by an offensive player that Dean Blandino, the former head of NFL officiating, was on social media, and he kind of laid it out with a highlight about why this was such a good, perfect textbook tackle by an offensive player.
Yeah.
So many defensive players can't do that.
You're right. And he used his shoulder, and he didn't affect any part of the head. It was a perfect play, and this defense. We thought the Cowboys could be good in parts of their defense. To be borderline dominant at times, I just didn't think this defense would get there. And I think
they still don't get a lot of turnovers.
Richard and Marinelli, you're right, they don't.
But the Van Der Esch interception did set up a touchdown, and that was big in a game that was this close. I think the most remarkable stat that
By the way, I looked up, just speaking before you move on to this wonderful stat you're going to say, you'll be impressed with this a little bit. Because I was thinking about who does Van Der Esch remind me of? Because it's easy to say, Sean Lee, but old Cowboys, who are the greatest linebackers in the history of the Cowboys? Leroy Jordan, Chuck Howley. And so I just wanted to see how many interceptions did I just wanted to see Hambrick brother that was. I wanted to see how many interceptions Howley ended up with in his career, his illustrious 13-year career. And then I'd forgotten that, Howley retired at one point and was working at a gas station when he was a first-round pick by the Steelers, and he got hurt. And he came back. He ended up with 25 career interceptions. Jeez. I think Van Der Esch could do that. I really do. He's got two. He's got two as a rookie. He's the only guy getting any interceptions for the Cowboys.
12 years to get close at this rate.
10 to 12 years. I really think Van Der Esch could have that. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be Howley. I'm just saying that he could have it. But go ahead, Ed. If I go to the trouble of researching things, I want to put it out there on air. Go ahead.
Well, we're talking about how well this defense has played and beyond expectations, really. I mean, I think we knew coming out of camp that this was a team that was going to be able to run the ball, or the plan was that they'd be able to run the ball and play great defense. And I guess they now seem to be doing that, and they're winning now that they've addressed the obvious problem in the equation, which was they didn't have a wide receiver, and so people were loading the box on the offense, and then they're playing from behind, and that's no way to play great defense. But the Cowboys' defense is in 106 opposing possessions. They're the only defense in the league that has not allowed a quick strike scoring drive of 4 plays or less. So they haven't given an offense one of those shock scoring plays, that kind of damages you psychologically and can kind of take the wind out of you and affect the way you play the rest of the game. I think it's pretty remarkable that they're the only defense that has forced opponents to drive the football at least 5 plays before they score against them.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good one too, Ed. And later you can tell me where you got that.
I got that one out of the Cowboys release. So
okay, good.
I'm gonna give credit to them. But hey, I read the stuff. You got to read it to get it. You do, and I've always meant to. Ed, I think it's time. And, of course, we need to talk to Glenn Stretch Smith, get the grades. I want to first, though, thank our partners at MyBookie. They do an incredible job. I don't think who knows how many people bet on the Cowboys today. Cowboys win that thing with that last-minute field goal. One of the reasons that people go to MyBookie, they pay the money. I mean, this is, if you do things online from time to time, Ed, I don't know if you don't seem like much of a gambler to me,
But sometimes one of the things they do, it's hard to get your money. They want to kind of keep that for a little bit. It doesn't happen at MyBookie. They have a great mobile site, so that's good. And they pay, and they got the most rewarding player perks in the business for fantasy players. You can bet on the over-under on how many fantasy points a player will score each game. Here's how you do it. Go to MyBookie and just know they will match your deposit dollar for dollar. Use the promo code Doomsday, DOOMSDAY, to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie online today. That's MyBookie, MyBookie. I like to spell things. And don't forget to use the promo code Doomsday when creating your account to claim up to $1,000 in free play. You play, you win, you get paid. And it is time for one of everyone's favorite segments, That's a Stretch, with Glenn Stretch Smith, Cowboys former scout and coach, and who knows, Stretch seemingly could be back in the coaching business pretty soon here, but we'll leave that for another day. Stretch, big win for the Cowboys, 5-5, obviously back in the NFC East race, and in fact, after a win over the Redskins, if they're able to do that, could have the upper hand in the NFC East. Amazing to see. And Eagles, last time I looked here, trailing. So it just really looks like Cowboys in good position. Stretch, let's start with the defense. Another really nice performance. Julio Jones had a good day. Matt Ryan did a few good things, but still, it comes down to keeping teams out of the end zone. They only had the one touchdown. Let's start with linebackers. Since we've been talking a lot about Leighton Vander Esch, what did you think of the linebacker play, Stretch? And let's put a letter grade on it.
Well, without question, Leighton Vander Esch, he's made a difference in this defense. We can say since they've traded for Amari Cooper, things have opened up offensively. Defensively, since they've inserted this young man into the starting lineup, he is all over the field, smart. I saw today him actually line up over the tight end. I haven't seen this in a long time because it's gotten to where the NFL is become a matchup league. And a lot of people are putting the dime guy in that position. Today, they left him in the game and actually stood him right up over the tight end to kind of, not allow him to release off the line of scrimmage and then play man coverage. This kid, and I say kid, guys, I was as critical as anybody of this pick, but I will promise you, he is a big-time football player, and what they did today, what he did today, and then Jalen Smith's going to, kind of contribute, but what he did today is unlike anything that I think I've seen for a long time at that position, and without doubt, I'm giving that young man an A+, and it's going to carry over on the other linebacker because they're all getting A's.
All right,
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that sounds good to me right there. Let's go to the secondary, and Ed was just praising Awuzie for kind of hanging in there, and even though Julio made some great catches today, but obviously he was pretty competitive out there. What did you make of that group? My thought, Stretch, was that the safeties every once in a while seem to be going for the big hit instead of the sure tackle. In one case, especially that I can remember,
Xavier Woods.
Yeah, that kind of haunted Woods a little bit. What was your take on that group?
Well, and since you're talking about the safeties, I really hated that he dropped that interception. That was a big play in the football game, and as was Woods had he been able to get him to the ground. I thought Awuzie, he's continuing, in my mind, he's continuing to grow. That's a tough position, guys, to transition to, and I know a lot of people can say, hey, well, you know what, you can play that cat coverage, that cat covers that cat, or you go cover that cat, and that's all fine and dandy, and it sounds good, but from a technique perspective, I thought he did some good thing against a very physical receiver. Now, he got beat some today on some slants, and that bothered me some, but I think, and like Ed mentioned, he continues to kind of compete. He continues to get better. And guys, Byron Jones, and this is another player, that I think I missed on a little bit, underestimated his ability, maybe his playmaking ability, but, he got cover skills. we haven't seen around here in a while. So as a group, I'm going to give the secondary a B.
You know what? Pretty remarkable stat to reinforce your grade and your observations there is that, Atlanta's one of the best big play offensive teams in football. They had one play for more than 20 yards in this game, and that was the touchdown pass to Jones, where he couldn't have been better covered. I mean, it was just a perfect throw and a great catch. But that's the level to which this defense played in this game. It really eliminated the big play that Atlanta thrives on. Anyway, next.
And that's a good point.
Yeah, Ed makes one occasionally.
I like talking to giving those to Stretch too, because he always acknowledges them. Where you just keep on going.
No, that's not true.
Well, there's a difference between acknowledge them and understanding them. One of the guys on this phone understands it, the other guy just acknowledges it or doesn't acknowledge
that's
it.
Right.
We'll play your game.
I'm a big supporter of Ed's. Okay, the defensive line. Let's take a peek at it. And they were missing some guys today. Walk us through it, Stretch. How this defensive line plays.
3 sacks,
starting with. D. Law making some the sack master himself. He certainly was bringing it today.
Well, like you said, I mean they were rolling some guys in there, and and they were missing some guys. I continue to see some things out of Gregory that I really like. I mean he does not get fooled on boots and waggles. I mean he really, and he's got the speed to kind of put his foot in the ground and change direction. And to me that's so impressive. I thought they got gashed a little bit in the run because they were trying to line those ends up wide, but when they do line those ends up wide, I see some great things out of Malik Collins, those inside guys being able to play 2 gaps, because that's tough when the defensive ends are lining up so wide so that they can kind of run and get that what they call run the hump, run over that offensive tackle blocking them. So this defensive line continues to be impressive. When you talk about Lawrence, but well, I'm seeing Gregory come along. I'm seeing Awuzie come along. I'm seeing some of these younger guys who I'm not sure, I really thought were going to be big contributors in this situation, just come out and play like veteran guys. And so I'm going to give the D-line a B+ as well.
Wow, when you were praising Randy Gregory, I was going to tell Mosley we must have called Jerry instead of you. I haven't heard anybody but Jerry praise Gregory. Good guy. Hey, Stretch, could it be that Jerry got both of his second-round gambles right with Randy Gregory and Jalen Smith?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's that Wildcatters mentality. I mean, how can you not look at both of those guys who were very high risk reward and think, well, you got to give Jerry some credit for the gamble on that, or do you give Steven the credit because he choked him down wanting to draft Johnny Football?
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know who you want to.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, their success makes me think, geez, Johnny Manziel would have been great here, I guess.
Well, I think Gregory needs to do more before we call him a success. I think it's Jalen Smith. It's about I think we can do it and say that thing's paid off in a big way. Okay, jump over on the opposite side of the ball and let's start. We gave some praise to Cole Beasley for atoning for that early drop. What did you, Stretch? You've been one of the leading critics of this group of wide receivers this year. Boy, I didn't even see was Hearns even active today?
He didn't have a target or a catch, and we should tell Stretch as he ponders his grade, because I know he puts a lot of thought into these. Stretch, the most targeted Cowboys receiver in this game today was Ezekiel Elliott, 8 targets, 1 less than Julio Jones. So
yeah,
keep that in mind.
And, I mean, I think what you saw today was Atlanta go back and they were playing coverage because, again, I do think that you can say, is he a number one? Isn't he a number one? I mean, Cooper is dictating coverage, and when you start doing that, then you want to get in the mindset offensively of you're taking what the defense gives you. I saw him run. Kind of went back to running some pivot routes. Not what you would think would be a conventional comeback where they drive up the field and then come out of it. Today I saw Cooper doing, pivoting out of that, and that tells me that they respect his size. I mean, he's able to physically get in there and do some things that, even Michael used to do. And so, and Beasley, the drop, I really thought that was going to come back to haunt the Cowboys. It was a well-designed play. It was, it's one of those things in the red zone where you're trying to design 4 or 5 shots, and it was a shot that was wide open and should have been caught. But yes, he atoned for himself, by making some catches in the end. And this receiving group, it really points to one guy, and that's Cooper. And what he's been able to do, guys, is loosen some of that coverage up, and I think it helps everybody. And from if it's not for the drop, I mean, I would have given him definitely a winning grade, but I'm giving him a B-, but I'm factoring in that drop because I really thought that drop was going to come back and haunt him.
Well, Gallup, I love seeing him come back on that one big catch on 3rd down, and that was good to see. You were calling for that earlier in the season. Okay, Stretch, a position you know a lot about. Give us real quickly the tight end. Swaim made a couple of plays today, not much else from the tight ends, but from just what you saw blocking and everything, what would you give the tight ends?
Yeah, I mean, did a nice job. I mean, I thought they, I thought they blocked the end man on the line of scrimmage okay. I mean, they're starting to move them around a little bit. I do like that. It looks like Lanahan is getting he's starting to get more confidence in those guys. I mean, I thought the best catch of the day was the one that Swain pulled off the ground. I mean, that's a phenomenal catch. I thought it was going to be a sack, and they dumped the ball to him. So he's always had hands, but the issue has been, being able to block the line of scrimmage. And, I like that he moves those guys around, and I'm going to give that group a B.
Okay, what about the O-line? How'd they perform?
They only gave up 2 sacks.
O-line did a nice job. I mean, they're very athletic. I mean, I just like how you can tell that the transition is back to playing more with their hands. And, they got beat a time or two today. I'm real concerned if, with Tyron's back. I mean, I love that he's fighting through it, but I like Looney. I really like the Sua. I'm not sure I can pronounce his name right. Suafilo. Yeah. I think he's a real find and done a really good job. I mean, Collins continues, I think, to grow, and there's upside here. I mean, where we were really being critical, and I was openly critical of some of the techniques that were being played here. I'm not seeing that, and so I may be a little biased in what I'm about to say because I like what HUD's doing. I like what Colombo's doing with this offensive line, and again, guys, a B to me is a fitting grade for the entire group.
You left out Travis Frederick. Travis Frederick's on the headset. I think he's really making all the line calls.
You think?
I do.
You think he's over? You think he's over there tied in to the quarterback telling him? What the first time I've noticed today too is it looked like Martin has really kind of accepted a lot of that line calling, and
I think you're right.
He kind of tells Looney when to snap that ball. So it does look like, there's a lot of communication going on there. And yeah, I saw Frederick on the headset as well. I'm not sure he could hear because of all that hair, but maybe some way he could get press those phones up there where he could hear something.
All right, I'm gonna give we talked a lot about the running back. I'm gonna go ahead and give him an A+ on your behalf. Walk us through the quarterback, though. Dak's Day. Ed has been very critical of this quarterback recently. I thought he showed some strength. I thought at the end of the game made some nice throws and made some plays. Obviously, they lean heavily on Zeke. Well, how did the quarterback play
208
today?
yards passing and no interceptions. They're 22-1 when he doesn't throw a pick.
Yeah, I think I like that he. He's physical. I mean, I'm ready to get away from the zone read and him keeping it. Today's the first time I've barked at the TV, and I'm not sure they heard me all the way in Atlanta. Quit calling that zone read keep. But I mean, what he does is he does make the defense stay honest with that. And, I thought Atlanta played it really well today, and that has nothing to do with his grade. But, I want to get more away from what feels like, kind of their go-to play, which is that, him keeping the football. He
scored a touchdown
throwing the ball. I still want to see that ball get, when he throws the deep ball, I want him to miss deep outside. I don't want him to miss short. And today I thought he missed short a couple of times. I mean, that ball, you want to see the same ball that Julio caught for the touchdown where you go up and get the ball. And he threw 2 deep shots to Gallup today where, and he wasn't open, and I know he was trying to throw him open by underthrowing the football, but I want to see that ball put out there and thrown better. I do think he shows me, though, guys, every week. I mean, I really like to watch a quarterback's demeanor, and I see him becoming more of a leader. I saw him bark at Beasley, hey, make sure, and he kind of pointed. They had a run called, hey, make sure you're blocking that guy that's down inside on you. So that tells me not only is he understanding of his responsibility, but he's also saying, hey, you know what, schematically what we're doing blocking here, make sure that we match up there. So, again, I know I'm giving a lot of B's today, but I think they're all well deserving.
B for the quarterback. And then special teams real quickly. I'll just say from my standpoint that I would go ahead and still cut the kicker and say thank you for the game-winning kick. We're done with you. We're going to move on down the road and try out some other kickers. Lenore had that's one of the most brain-dead plays you will ever see in an NFL game and could have ended up being the GOAT in this thing and not the GOAT in the good way.
I know Ed's probably waiting on this, and he's waiting on Stretch to let it rip. So I'll do it right here. Lance Lenore, I'd cut his ass tomorrow. I'd cut his ass. So I'd put him on the streets for being such a bonehead. I mean, I know he's trying to get in the game and make a play, but that, to me, that's inexcusable. Now, kicker-wise, I mean, you can say, cut him, guys. There's a lot of guys looking for guys that can, that can cut it, that can get it through there. I'm going to say that, I think that you've got to kind of try to work through that. It's like I wouldn't say he's got the yips like you do with a putter, but I do think he's getting into that. He's getting into that mental midget mentality. So, I hope it's something that he breaks out of.
Yeah.
But, I mean, as a group, because of Lenore's play, I mean, it really almost cost the Cowboys, and at best I can give that group a D.
And I can't remember. Do you remember when Lenore came to the sidelines after that grievous mistake that could have cost him the game? Did Garrett chew him out like Parcells would have, or did he pat him on the helmet?
I think he just gave him the look like he was trying to get him to give him some sort of reaction. And I think Jason just looked at him, and I think that young man knows. I mean, the special teams coach here is probably he. I know he's been on the staff a while, but he's not a very real experienced guy. So I'm not sure I just don't know what reaction you'd give unless it was a firm. What are you thinking? And
yes.
To me, Jason's not that kind of coach, and so that's not what happened.
Stretch, we know you had a wild weekend calling a high school game and then calling a college game. Thank you for taking the time. Good luck on TV this evening, and always appreciate That's a Stretch.
Thanks, Stretch.
All right, man. Have a great one.
There he goes, Glenn Stretch Smith, joining the Doomsday Podcast. And, Ed, just as we get ready to sign off tonight, some final thoughts. Cowboys will turn around, and we'll be out, both of us will be out live at that Thanksgiving Day game. And then I guess what we'll try to do is be right out there and record perhaps right after the game, Thanksgiving night. Ed, this is a quick turnaround for this team. The Cowboys have had a lot of opportunities over the years to sort of know how to do this. We saw, and you noted at the first of the show, the horrible injury. Redskins quarterback, Alex Smith, just a awful thing, and he may be done for his career. Where do you think this Cowboys thing is as they head in 5-5? Are you moving toward trusting this team a little bit, or are you still kind of like a week to week with that?
Well, it's encouraging that they've won back-to-back games and that they're both, on the road against other contenders, teams that, quite honestly, I think have overall better personnel than they do. So I think that's an accomplishment. I think they should win the game against the Redskins. I think they're a better team than the Redskins. I think they were when they lost to them in Washington a few weeks ago, and I think it'll be a devastating loss for the Redskins to have to play the rest of the year without Alex Smith, plus without two offensive linemen that they lost the week before, Trent Williams, their left tackle. I just don't see the Redskins hanging in there for much longer. I think the thing to keep an eye on with the Cowboys is the health of Tyron Smith, their left tackle. We all saw what happened to the entire offense, the entire franchise, when he went out last year with that back injury, and he was having problems with his back going into this game. He was limited in practice a few times, and then he left the game at the very end with a I don't know, some kind of nerve problem in his neck or upper shoulder that they were working on. Dr. Jerry said he didn't think it was too serious. Dr. Jerry has said that before, and guys have never returned to play again. And the reason I think it's a quick turnaround, and Tyron Smith, listen to this stat. He had gone 91 consecutive pass blocks without allowing a pressure going into this game, which was the longest active streak in the entire league for a left tackle. So that's how important his health is to their season going forward.
My goodness. Ed, you've been great today. Safe travels as you go get ready for that big Monday night matchup, which has been moved to from Mexico City to Los Angeles. And we thank Hodges Capital for all the work they continue to do with us, and just great partners that they are. And thanks to my bookie. And there's let's just say Richardson Chrysler, Jeep Dodge. If you're in the area out in Richardson, I'd drop by and get a vehicle there. And soon you may hear more about them on the Doomsday Podcast. A huge win for the Cowboys, 22-19. We will talk to you very soon. In fact, Thursday evening on Thanksgiving will be our next program. Ed, say goodnight to everybody.
Good night, everybody.
That's it for the Doomsday Podcast from Frito Nation Productions in far North Dallas. Good night.
Lights are shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before. And the streets are all but empty, the bars have all shut down, and it's hard to find a friend inside this godforsaken town. That emptiness it feels from your head down to your toes. I'm sorry, baby, that's just the way it goes. Once you were a young girl with lovers by the score, money by the handful, you never wanted more. But big tend to leave you as time has its way. It may leave behind little mouth to feed.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.